Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to address a question that I got about my prison sentence. And this is something that I wanted to address anyway, so I'm going to address this question in this video. This is from Kathy Laurent. Okay, so the question is, you're in prison meditating and practicing all of these techniques. When or what was your aha moment or your light bulb moment or your epiphany? And I wanted to address this because there was actually an aha moment for me where I was actually became the observer of my thoughts. And the book that opened that up for me was actually a book written by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now, which I found in the prison library when I was just going through books. I was trying to find all the self-development books. I was reading Neville, but I went through all of Neville's books and I started looking for other books like Buddhist books and things like that for meditation. And I found this book and I really, really liked it. And there was an idea that he had about observing the thinker. When he went through this in this chapter, and it really woke me up because I was able to observe the thinker, like observe myself thinking. Then at that moment, I realized that my brain was not me. Like my brain, I was using my brain and identifying myself as the calculator of my mind. And then I was trying to solve problems with my identity, with my ego attached to it all the time. But when I read this book, I remember because I woke up in the morning, I was going to breakfast. It was like 5 a.m. And when you come out of prison, when you come out of the dorms, in some prisons, you got to wait in a foyer. There's like, they lock the door here, lock the door here. They get like 80 prisoners in this one little area and you're tied in there. And you got to wait for this door to close in order for this door to open. It's almost like you feel like you're cattle, like they're herding cattle into this one room and then the door opens. But while I was in there that morning after I read that chapter, it all clicked to me because all of these things were going on. It was like chaos going on in there. People are getting pissed off because you're locked within this foyer, both doors are locked, and you got 80 prisoners in this little room, and you're tied up in there. So people started getting pissed off. People start fighting, yelling, arguing, getting pissed off in there. And then I realized my thinker was going, my mind was going, and then I had this like aha moment where I was outside of myself and I was observing the thinker. And then I was like, okay, so I can change this. I can change my thinking. I don't have to attach my ego. This is not me. Like the person, like the voice in my mind is not me, and I can control that. And I can actually take control of that and manipulate it and change it. So if I'm upset about something, it's because I've identified myself with my brain. Like add that, I'm thinking that is me, and then it takes over my thoughts. So the ego is now controlling your thoughts. Like all the time. That was the way my life was throughout my entire life. And I didn't know that you could control this. So when I read this book, like I had this aha moment. I woke up and I was outside of myself and I was observing my thoughts. I was observing the thinker. And that's the language that Eckhart Tolle used in the book. Observe the thinker. Watch the thinker. So, and if you're able to observe your thinking, that means that is not you. If you're able to observe something, that means that you are obviously not that. Like, for example, if I were to observe this notepad right here, I'm observing it and I'm watching it. That means that I am not the notepad. That means that this is separate from me. So what I realized is that my brain, my calculator was separate from me, and I actually had the ability to manipulate it and control it. But before I had this awakening, I was being controlled by the calculator, the brain. So essentially, before I had this awakening, I was basically a sleepwalker reacting to everything that happened in my world. I was reacting emotionally to everything because the ego is very emotional. The ego then connects to the brain, and then you identify with that. Then you're constantly going to be upset and getting emotional and not thinking intellectually and thinking properly. But if you're able to go outside and observe the ego and the brain and the calculator, and then you learn to control it and be like, wait a minute, I don't need to be emotional about this. I can just ignore this. I can actually change my inner dialogue by doing this and then really observe the thoughts. So when I had this, then I was able to like watch my thoughts. Then I see where my thoughts are going. Then I could go in like manually and change my thoughts, because once you start observing something, once you have that awakening and start observing your thoughts, then you realize that your brain is not you. Then you're able to change these things. So I started noticing, then I started observing my thoughts all the time. And then it gave me like this awareness of what I was thinking all the time. And my thoughts were just horrible. They were so bad. I was noticing all my thoughts, my habitual thinking patterns that were connected to my ego. And I was getting upset, even though I wasn't reacting instantly to these things. They were affecting me emotionally within me, a lot of things that were going on around me. And I was allowing this to happen until this moment. And once I had this awakening, I was able to observe this and see this and be like, wait a minute, I don't have to be affected by these things that are going on around me. So I started to change them. Then I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to think that is not me. I'm observing this. This is not me. So I'm going to change that. Why? And I started asking the questions to myself. Why would I allow this to affect me emotionally? What is that accomplishing for me? Because I learned that in Neville Goddard's books. Don't invest in anything. Don't invest your time in anything that doesn't contribute to your success or your happiness. You got to treat all of your thoughts as an investment. So I started applying that to it. And I'm like, okay, so why would I think about this that's going on? Unless it's life threatening, then I would attach myself and try to find a way out of that, or find a way to tackle that or take care of that. But I was using it at that point, be like, okay, so this happened over here. There's nothing I can do to change that. So I'm not gonna keep my attention on that. I'm not gonna think about that anymore. I'm gonna move that away from me. These other things that are happening, okay, so that doesn't contribute to my happiness or my success. I don't need to think about this. So I started changing and manipulating all of my thoughts. I was able to do this at this point. I'm like, okay, so I want to focus on this, and nothing's going to change that. So I had this ability to focus on one thing. And this was probably one of the biggest awakenings that I had, or one of the most impactful awakenings that I had in prison, was this moment. Because now, once I knew about this, I was able to really focus my attention and get all of the weeds out of the garden, so to speak. My garden was full of weeds, so I started pulling all these weeds out of the garden, and then all of a sudden there's some beautiful flowers growing everywhere, and I'm selecting seed now for my garden, and everything's growing. And this ability to do this is actually why I can do anything now. My mind, there's no weeds in my mind anymore, and now I could do anything. I'm not in a conceited way. I'm not saying this in a conceited way at all, but I could do anything. You could put me in charge of a business that I know nothing about, and within 3 to 6 months, I would 10x that business. Not even knowing anything about it, I would study it, and I wouldn't allow any other thoughts to come into my mind, and I would do it. I would fix it. Even if there was a business that was failing, for whatever reason, you could put me in charge of that business, and within 6 months or a year, I would put it back on its feet, because I have this ability to visualize and focus and keep all the weeds out of my mind, and then I can I can observe all of my thinking. And whatever I focus my attention on, I'm gonna find ideas to solve these problems. I'm a problem solver now, and whatever, it's like a laser focus that I have on anything that I do in life now. And why I want to share this is because this is possible for anyone. Anyone can clear these weeds out of their mind and create anything that they want. So that's why I think it's so vitally important that I challenge everyone watching this video, if you haven't already had this awakening, to start and begin to observe your mind and know that you are not your brain. Your brain is only meant for calculation. And if you have identified yourself with your brain, that means it is controlling you, and you are somewhat sleepwalking through your life, and it's going to pick and choose what it's emotional about. And you have to learn how to be intellectual about what you're thinking, because you need to learn how to control your thoughts and use them for investments. Everything that you're thinking about is taking up space in your mind. And when you can start selecting the right thoughts and the seeds for your garden, you will soon find that you can create anything that you want. So I'm challenging you to observe the thinker. Go into meditation and just go outside of yourself and observe your thoughts. Just observe your thoughts and see where they're going. Just observe them and separate yourself from your mind, from your brain, and watch it, because it's not you. It is not you, and you have the ability to separate yourself from your brain and from your thoughts. And when you separate yourself from your thoughts and your mind, you will be connected to the source, which is omnipotent, which is God, which is the source, which is consciousness. When you separate yourself from outside of your body and your mind, then you will have thoughts and you will be enlightened and you'll be connected to the source and get lots of ideas from this place. So that's your challenge, guys. I want you to go into meditation. I want you to observe the thinker. And anything you want me to expound on, or any comments that you want to leave, any future videos or any questions you have for me, I will look those over. I will read all of them for possible future content. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.